"Read the manual, Moron," the CEO yelled. The single dad flipped to the cover. His name was on it. Why did the CEO yell at the single dad over a manual? What secret could be revealed when his name appeared on the cover? Hello, everyone. Welcome back, and I hope you have a wonderful day filled with positive energy and good fortune. Please give us just 5 seconds of your kindness by subscribing to our channel and turning on notifications for more inspiring stories. Thank you for being here and supporting our journey. Before we begin, tell us where in the world you are watching from and what time is right now. Your support means so much to us. Now, let us begin the story. You clearly did not read the manual, did you? The CEO's words echoed through the conference room, but the quiet single dad standing in front of her did not argue. He simply looked down at the document in his hands and turned the first page. Nobody in the room knew that one small movement was about to reveal a truth that would change everything. Ethan Carter had never been the kind of person who needed attention. At 39 years old, he had learned that the loudest person in the room was not always the smartest one. Wearing a simple jacket and carrying a worn folder, he stood among executives who measured success by titles, expensive suits, and impressive resumes. To them, he looked like someone who did not belong. To himself, he was just a father trying to finish one important task before picking up his son from school. The meeting at Hayes Technologies was supposed to be simple. Ethan had been invited to review the latest version of a product manual, something the company had relied on for years. But when Victoria Hayes, the company's powerful CEO, entered the room, the atmosphere immediately changed. She was known for her intelligence, her confidence, and her ability to make fast decisions. Her employees respected her, but many also feared disappointing her. "We have spent months perfecting this system," Victoria said while looking over the reports. "I do not have time for mistakes." Ethan quietly studied the documents in front of him. He noticed several details that others had missed, but before he could explain, Victoria interrupted. "You are saying the instructions are wrong?" she asked. Ethan remained calm. "I'm saying there are a few things that could be improved." Victoria looked at him carefully. She saw an ordinary-looking man questioning a system her company had invested millions of dollars into. "Maybe you should read the manual before making suggestions," she said sharply. The room became quiet. Some employees looked away, unsure how to react. Ethan simply lowered his eyes to the manual. He did not feel embarrassed. He did not feel the need to defend himself. He had spent years learning that patience was stronger than pride. His son always reminded him of that. "Dad, why do you never get angry when people misunderstand you?" Ethan had once asked himself the same question. The answer was simple. He knew who he was. He did not need every person to recognize his value immediately. The meeting continued, and Ethan carefully turned through the pages. The manual contained diagrams, technical notes, and development information. Victoria crossed her arms, expecting him to find nothing. But Ethan stopped when he reached the cover page. His expression changed slightly, not because he was surprised, but because he remembered something from years earlier. A small detail that almost everyone had forgotten. The room waited silently as Ethan placed his finger on the first page. Nobody understood why a simple cover could matter so much. Nobody knew that the name printed there belonged to the person standing in front of them. And in that moment, the people who thought they understood Ethan Carter were about to discover they never knew his story at all. The silence that followed was not caused by confusion. It was caused by everyone realizing they might have misunderstood the person standing in front of them. Ethan Carter slowly lifted his hand from the cover of the manual, while the executives around the table watched carefully. Victoria Hayes expected him to explain himself, but instead, he simply turned the document around so everyone could see the first page clearly. There, beneath the title of the product, was a line that made the entire room pause. Created by Ethan Carter. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. The same man they had assumed was just another employee was connected to the very foundation of the technology they depended on every day. Victoria looked at the page, then back at Ethan. Her expression changed from confidence to curiosity. "That cannot be right," she said quietly. Ethan did not react with frustration. He simply answered, "It is an older version of the document. The original records were created several years ago. His calm response made the moment even more surprising. He was not trying to embarrass anyone. He was not trying to prove he was better than them. He was simply stating a fact. The truth was that Ethan had spent years avoiding attention. Long before Hayes Technologies became one of the fastest-growing companies in the industry, Ethan had been a young engineer with a passion for solving problems. He spent countless nights designing systems, testing ideas, and creating solutions that could help people. His work was not motivated by fame. It was motivated by curiosity and purpose. But life changed when he became a single father. After his son Noah was born, Ethan realized his priorities had shifted. The world of business awards, interviews, and constant competition no longer felt as important as being present for his child. So he stepped away. He allowed others to take credit for moving the project forward while he focused on building a stable home life. Most people assumed he disappeared because he failed. The truth was the opposite. He left because he succeeded in creating something meaningful and wanted to choose a different kind of life. Back in the conference room, Victoria continued reading the information in front of her. She noticed the technical notes, the design concepts, and the original development records. Every detail confirmed the same thing. Ethan Carter was not someone who needed to read the manual. He was the person who had written the foundation behind it. One employee finally broke the silence. Why did nobody know about this? Ethan looked down for a moment. Because I never wanted the attention. That answer surprised everyone. In a world where people often fought to be recognized, Ethan had chosen to step away from recognition entirely. Victoria studied him carefully. She had built her career by identifying talent quickly, yet she had failed to recognize the person standing directly in front of her. The man she had judged by his appearance carried knowledge, experience, and humility that could not be measured by a title. For the first time, Victoria wondered how many other people she had misunderstood because she only saw what was visible. And as the room remained quiet, one truth became impossible to ignore. The person everyone underestimated was the person who understood the most. The truth about Ethan Carter did not spread because he demanded recognition. It spread because people could not understand how someone so important could remain so humble. After the meeting ended, the executives at Hayes Technologies continued discussing what they had learned. Some were amazed by his achievements. Others wondered why they had never heard his name before. But Ethan simply gathered his documents and prepared to leave, just as he had planned before anyone knew his story. "Mr. Carter, are you really leaving?" one employee asked. Ethan smiled. "I have to pick up my son from school." That simple answer surprised them more than his accomplishments. To Ethan, being a father was still the most important role he had. The next morning, Victoria Hayes reviewed the history of the company's most successful project. She looked through old development records, interviews, and internal reports. Every page revealed the same truth. Ethan had created the original framework years earlier. His ideas had shaped the product that helped the company grow into what it was today. Yet his name had slowly disappeared from public attention because he never fought to remain in the spotlight. Victoria sat quietly in her office, thinking about the previous day. She remembered the way she spoke to him. She remembered assuming he was unprepared simply because he looked different from the executives around her. The realization bothered her. She had always considered herself someone who recognized talent, but she had missed the most important detail. She had not taken the time to see the person. Meanwhile, Ethan returned home to his small neighborhood and stepped into the life he had chosen. Noah ran toward him with a school project in his hands. "Dad, can you help me with this?" he asked. Ethan smiled and sat beside him at the kitchen table. The project was not about technology or business. It was about family history. Ethan listened carefully as Noah explained his ideas, offering encouragement instead of trying to control the outcome. For Ethan, these moments were more valuable than any award or title. He wanted his son to grow up knowing that success was not only about achievements. It was about being kind, dependable, and present. Later that evening, Victoria made a decision. She wanted to meet Ethan again, but this time not as a CEO speaking to someone connected to her company. She wanted to speak with him as a person. The following week, she invited him to her office. When Ethan arrived, the atmosphere was different. There was no pressure, no judgment, and no audience watching. "I owe you an apology," Victoria said. Ethan looked surprised. "For what?" "For assuming I knew who you were before I actually knew anything about you." Ethan remained quiet for a moment. He appreciated the honesty. "Everyone makes mistakes," he said. "What matters is what we learn from them." Those words stayed with Victoria. She had spent years chasing excellence, but Ethan reminded her that excellence without humility could become empty. From that day forward, she began looking at people differently. She started asking questions before making judgments. She listened before giving orders. And the man she once overlooked became the person who helped her understand what true leadership really meant. The most meaningful changes do not happen when people are forced to change. They happen when they finally understand something they once failed to see. For Victoria Hayes, that realization came slowly. After her conversation with Ethan Carter, she began looking at her company and the people inside it with a different perspective. She noticed things she had ignored before. Employees who rarely spoke during meetings. New team members who had valuable ideas but lacked confidence. Customers who needed understanding before they needed solutions. Ethan had never given her a lecture about leadership. He had simply shown her a different way to see the world. Meanwhile, Ethan continued living the same quiet life he had always chosen. He arrived home every evening, helped Noah with schoolwork, prepared dinner, and enjoyed the simple moments many successful people often missed. To Ethan, his greatest achievement was not the technology he created. It was being there for his son. One afternoon, Victoria visited a community event organized by Hayes Technologies. She expected to see another formal company gathering filled with presentations and speeches. Instead, she found Ethan helping children understand simple technology concepts. He was not standing on a stage. He was sitting beside them, answering questions and encouraging their curiosity. Victoria watched from a distance and realized something important. Ethan had never lost his passion for creating. He had simply changed the reason behind it. Years ago, he created technology to solve problems. Now he used his knowledge to inspire others. "You always make things look easy," Victoria said when she approached him. Ethan smiled. "Things are not always easy. You just learn what is worth the effort." His answer reminded her of how differently they viewed success. Victoria had spent years trying to reach the highest position possible. Ethan had spent years trying to become the best father possible. Both required dedication, but only one had brought him true peace. As they continued talking, Victoria opened up about the pressure she carried as a CEO. She explained how everyone expected her to have every answer and make every decision perfectly. Ethan listened carefully. "Being a leader does not mean you never make mistakes," he said. "It means you are willing to learn when you do." Those words stayed with Victoria. She realized that her greatest weakness was not making mistakes. It was believing she had to appear like she never made them. Over the next few weeks, changes became visible throughout Hayes Technologies. Victoria encouraged employees to share ideas without fear. She created more opportunities for people who were often overlooked. The company became more connected, not because she became a different person, but because she allowed herself to become a better one. Ethan remained quietly involved, offering advice only when asked. He never sought a position, a title, or recognition. His influence came from the respect people naturally gave him. One evening, Victoria watched Ethan leave the office after helping a team solve a difficult challenge. She noticed something that surprised her. The same man who once stood silently while being judged was now the person everyone looked toward when they needed wisdom. The world had finally begun to see what was always there. Ethan Carter was not valuable because of what he created. He was valuable because of who he was. And Victoria was beginning to understand that the greatest leaders are not the ones who demand respect. They are the ones who earn it through humility, kindness, and the courage to see beyond appearances. The greatest moments of recognition are not always the ones that come with applause. Sometimes they happen in quiet moments when people finally understand the value of someone they once overlooked. At Hayes Technologies, Ethan Carter's influence continued to grow, but he never changed the way he lived. He still arrived without attention, still spoke with patience, and still focused on the things that mattered most to him. While others saw a brilliant inventor, Ethan saw himself as a father first. One morning, Victoria Hayes called an important company meeting. Executives, engineers, and department leaders gathered in the main conference room. Everyone expected a discussion about future projects and business strategies. Instead, Victoria stood at the front of the room with a different purpose. Before we talk about the future of this company, there is something important everyone needs to understand, she said. The room became quiet. Victoria looked toward Ethan, who was sitting among the employees instead of standing beside the executives. For years, we benefited from the work of someone who never asked for recognition, she continued. Someone whose ideas helped build the foundation of this company. She paused before saying his name. Ethan Carter. The room filled with silence. Many employees knew Ethan as the quiet consultant who occasionally offered advice. They never knew the full story behind him. Victoria explained how Ethan created the original concepts that shaped one of the company's most successful technologies. She explained how he stepped away from the spotlight, not because he lacked ambition, but because he chose a different definition of success. The person who created something extraordinary was never looking for attention, Victoria said. He was focused on being there for his family and living according to his values. Ethan listened quietly. He appreciated the recognition, but he did not need it. When Victoria finished speaking, she invited him to share a few words. Ethan stood slowly and looked around the room. I never believed a person's value came from having their name on something, he said. What matters is what we do with what we know and how we use it to help others. His simple words had a powerful effect. Many people expected a speech about achievements, awards, or success. Instead, Ethan talked about responsibility, teamwork, and gratitude. After the meeting, several employees approached him. They asked about his experiences, his ideas, and the lessons he had learned throughout his career. Ethan answered every question with the same patience he always showed. Meanwhile, Victoria watched from a distance and realized how much she had changed. Months earlier, she had seen Ethan as someone who did not belong in her world. Now she understood that he had been someone who could teach her more than any business book ever could. Later that day, Victoria thanked Ethan privately. When we first met, I thought I was the person with all the answers, she admitted. Ethan smiled. Most of us think that at some point. The important thing is being willing to learn. Victoria nodded. She knew she was not the same leader she had been before meeting him. Ethan had shown her that leadership was not about standing above others. It was about standing with them. And for the first time, the company was not only celebrating what Ethan had created. It was celebrating the person he had always been. The most valuable lessons in life are often not learned from success, but from the moments that reveal what truly matters. After the company recognized Ethan Carter's contribution, many people expected his life to change. They thought he would finally step into the spotlight, accept a powerful position, and become the face of Hayes Technologies. But Ethan surprised everyone by staying exactly the same. He continued arriving early, listening carefully, and focusing on the people around him rather than the attention he received. To Ethan, recognition was not the reason he created. Purpose was. One afternoon, Victoria Hayes visited Ethan's home for the first time. She wanted to understand the person behind the achievements, not just the inventor behind the technology. When she arrived, she expected to see signs of success. Instead, she found something completely different. She saw a peaceful home filled with simple memories, family photos, and reminders of the life Ethan had chosen. Noah welcomed her with a smile and immediately showed her a school project he was working on. Ethan laughed as he helped his son explain every detail. Victoria watched the moment quietly. It was different from the world she knew. There were no business deals, no negotiations, and no pressure to impress anyone. There was only connection. This is what you walked away from everything for? Victoria asked. Ethan smiled. I did not walk away from everything. I walked towards something more important. Those words stayed with her. She realized Ethan had not abandoned success. He had simply created a different version of it. Later, They sat outside while the evening sky changed colors above the neighborhood. Victoria opened up about her own life. She admitted that becoming CEO had always been her dream, but somewhere along the way, she started believing that achievement was the only way to feel valuable. Everyone sees the title, she said, but sometimes they forget there is a person behind it. Ethan nodded. People often look at what someone has instead of asking what someone has been through. That conversation created a deeper understanding between them. Victoria began seeing Ethan not only as a brilliant creator, but as someone who had faced difficult choices and still chose kindness. Ethan also began seeing Victoria differently. He noticed the pressure she carried and the expectations that followed her everywhere. Behind the confident CEO was someone who also wanted to be understood. Their connection grew through honest conversations and shared moments. Victoria learned about Ethan's journey as a single father. She learned how he balanced responsibilities, how he supported Noah, and how he found happiness in simple routines. Ethan learned about Victoria's challenges, the sacrifices behind her success, and a loneliness that often came with leadership. Neither of them tried to change the other. They simply listened. Over time, the people around them noticed something different. Victoria became more patient. Ethan became more open. Their worlds, once completely separate, began to come together through respect and understanding. The man who never wanted recognition had given the CEO something far more valuable than business advice. He had shown her that success without connection could feel empty. And the woman who once judged him by appearance had discovered the greatest lesson of all. Sometimes the person who teaches us the most is the person we almost failed to notice. The strongest connections are not created through grand gestures. They're built through small moments when people choose to understand each other. As time passed, Ethan Carter and Victoria Hayes found themselves learning lessons they never expected. Their lives had started from completely different places. Ethan had built his world around family, patience, and quiet responsibility. Victoria had built hers around ambition, leadership, and constant achievement. But somewhere between those differences, they discovered something they both needed. They discovered understanding. At Hayes Technologies, Victoria continued changing the way she led. She no longer entered meetings expecting everyone to have the same answers she had. Instead, she started asking better questions. She encouraged employees to share their ideas and reminded her team that every person had something valuable to contribute. Many employees noticed the difference. The CEO, who once focused only on results, now focused on the people creating those results. Ethan quietly watched those changes from a distance. He never took credit for them. He simply believed that people changed when they felt respected. One afternoon, Victoria invited Ethan to a company leadership event. She wanted him to speak with a group of young employees who were beginning their careers. Ethan hesitated at first. "I'm not sure I am the right person for that," he said. "Victoria Smaid, that is exactly why you are the right person." During the event, Ethan stood in front of the group and shared his story. He did not talk about the technology he created or the success that followed. Instead, he talked about mistakes, choices, and the importance of staying true to yourself. "A career can give you achievements," Ethan explained, "but your character is what stays with you when everything else changes." The employees listened carefully. Many expected a speech about innovation and success. Instead, they heard a lesson about life. After the event, Victoria thanked him. "You realize you changed more people today than you probably know," she said. Ethan smiled. People usually do not need someone to tell them what to become. They need someone to remind them what they already have inside. Those words stayed with Victoria. She had spent years searching for the next major achievement, but Ethan helped her recognize the value of the present moment. Their friendship continued growing naturally. They shared conversations about their dreams, their fears, and the experiences that shaped them. Victoria became someone Ethan could talk to about the challenges of raising Noah alone. Ethan became someone Victoria trusted when the pressure of leadership felt overwhelming. Neither of them expected their lives to become connected this way, But sometimes the most meaningful relationships appear when people stop looking for what they can gain and start seeing what they can give. One evening, Ethan and Victoria walked through the park near his neighborhood while Noah played nearby. Victoria looked around and smiled. I spent years building a company, but I never realized how much I could learn from a simple evening like this. Ethan looked at her and said, maybe the most important things were never the ones that needed to be built. In that quiet moment, Victoria understood something she had missed for years. The greatest achievements were not always found in offices, awards, or numbers. Sometimes they were found in the people who helped us become better versions of ourselves. And the man she once underestimated had become the person who reminded her what true success really meant. The moments that reveal a person's true character are often the ones when nobody is watching. For Ethan Carter and Victoria Hayes, the journey they shared had changed the way they both saw success, respect, and the meaning of a meaningful life. But even as their connection grew stronger, Ethan remained the same person he had always been. He never expected special treatment. He never wanted people to admire him because of what he had created. He only wanted to be valued for who he was. One morning, Hayes Technologies prepared for its annual company celebration. Employees gathered to recognize the achievements of the past year. Many expected Victoria to stand on stage and talk about growth, profits, and future goals. Instead, she surprised everyone with a different message. When she stepped onto the stage, she looked across the room and took a moment before speaking. For a long time, I believed leadership meant having the strongest voice in the room, she said. But I learned that true leadership begins with listening. The room became quiet. Victoria continued by sharing a story about someone who changed the way she viewed people. She did not focus on Ethan's achievements or the technology he created. She focused on the qualities that made him different: his patience, his humility, his willingness to help without expecting anything in return. The most valuable person in this company was not the person asking to be recognized, Victoria said. It was the person who continued doing the right thing even when nobody knew his name. Ethan sat among the employees, listening quietly. He felt grateful, but he also felt uncomfortable with too much attention. Recognition was never his goal. After the event, several employees approached him and thanked him for inspiring them. One young engineer told Ethan, "I thought success meant becoming the most important person in the room. Now I think it means becoming someone others can trust." Ethan smiled. "That is a lesson I am still learning too." Later that day, Victoria and Ethan had a conversation outside the office. The city lights reflected through the windows as they talked about how much had changed. "Do you remember our first meeting?" Victoria asked. Ethan smiled slightly. "I remember." She looked down for a moment. "I treated you like you did not belong there." Ethan answered gently. "You saw what was in front of you. Many people do the same thing." Victoria shook her head. "But I should have looked deeper." Ethan appreciated her honesty. He knew apologies were meaningful when they came with change. And Victoria had changed. She was no longer the person who judged someone by appearance. She had become someone who searched for the story behind every person she met. Over time, their bond became something neither of them expected. What started as a misunderstanding became a connection built on respect and trust. Ethan showed Victoria that success did not need to be loud. Victoria showed Ethan that even after years of standing alone, it was possible to find people who truly understood him. Their lives were different, but their values had become connected. They both learned that people are often more than what the world sees at first glance. Sometimes a quiet person carries the greatest wisdom. Sometimes the person standing in the background is the one who changes everything. And sometimes the greatest reward is not being recognized by everyone. It is being understood by the right people. The most powerful transformations are not the ones that change what people have. They're the ones that change how people see the world around them. Years after the day Ethan Carter walked into Hayes Technologies with a simple folder and an old jacket, the memory of that moment remained with everyone who knew the story. Many people remembered the mistake. They remembered how quickly assumptions were made. But more importantly, they remembered what happened after the truth was revealed. Ethan never became a different person because people finally recognized him. He had always been the same man, a devoted father, a thoughtful creator, a person who believed kindness mattered more than recognition. His life continued with the same quiet rhythm. He helped Noah with school projects, shared family dinners, and enjoyed the small moments that money could never replace. Even though the world now knew his name, Ethan still believed the greatest achievement was being someone his son could always depend on. Victoria Hayes also carried the lessons she learned from him. As the CEO of Hayes Technologies, she continued building the company with a new philosophy. She no longer measured success only through numbers and achievements. She measured it through trust, teamwork, and the impact people had on each other. One afternoon, Victoria and Ethan visited the company's newest innovation center. Young engineers were working on projects inspired by the same principles Ethan had followed years earlier. Curiosity, responsibility, a desire to create something meaningful. Victoria looked around and smiled. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if that day had gone differently?" she asked. Ethan looked thoughtful. "Maybe things would have changed, but I believe every moment teaches us something." Victoria nodded. She understood what he meant. The misunderstanding that once separated them had become the reason they learned so much from each other. Ethan taught her that a person's value could never be measured by appearance, position, or reputation. Victoria taught Ethan that sometimes letting people see your story could create opportunities to help others. Their connection became a reminder to everyone around them that people are often carrying experiences nobody knows about. The person who seems ordinary may have extraordinary wisdom. The person who speaks the least may have the most important things to say. Years earlier, Ethan stood in a room where people underestimated him. He did not demand respect. He did not raise his voice. He simply remained true to himself. And eventually, the truth became louder than any argument could have been. The world finally understood what had always been there. Ethan Carter was never defined by the technology he created or the name written on a document. He was defined by his character, by the way he treated others, by the love he gave his son, by the kindness he showed even when nobody knew who he was. Victoria often thought about that lesson whenever she faced difficult decisions. She remembered the quiet father who walked in her office and changed the way she saw leadership forever. Because sometimes the greatest discoveries are not found in inventions, companies, or success. Sometimes the greatest discovery is realizing the value of the person standing right in front of you. And sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the person who teaches the world what truly matters.